So Jodhpur it is today. I have not been to Jodhpur, and we were in fact considering doing a Jodhpur art retreat next after the France retreat. So maybe in December. Oh no, actually next year. So this year again in December we will have a Jaipur retreat, and then next year we will do Jodhpur. So this is good training for that.
Aditi?
Yeah.
So the Morocco one, we have only the border left, right? We are not going to use watercolors in that.
No, we won't use watercolor.
Okay, so that's what you meant by graphic representation, just like drawing with a pen alone.
Yes, so this is one you can, of course, add color even to graphics. It doesn't mean that you don't need to, and we can do a combination of things. So we can paint the carpets that are hanging and not
Mm-hmm.
the grill, and the food part, we don't even have to do it. So the reason why I like to do more than one different style is that you often don't have time to make every illustration very elaborate, but you still need to or feel the need to illustrate maybe all the different days that you're traveling. So why graphics of food help is that uh, firstly you're at a restaurant or something for maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour at the most, and you want to quickly make something at that moment when the food is served. So you would probably just quickly take pictures, and then while you're eating or while you have dessert or something, you want to jot it down. Sorry, assuming that this is sometime during the day when you have other activities that are going to occupy you, you want to focus more on the illustrations in the other activities. You'll probably go to museums or see buildings, or will be in cities where you want to make cityscapes. So there you might want to spend more time actively illustrating. These illustrations can only be fillers in between. And they work brilliantly because then you can write something about the food that you have illustrated, because that makes more sense. In most places, food is very weird to draw unless there are specific things like you have a burger or you have a dessert which has berries on top or something like that. Even a chocolate cake essentially is just like a puddle of brown color. So in our heads, it looks like chocolate cake, and we have connotations of its taste. But on
Mm-hmm.
paper, there's really nothing much you can do about it. But you can actually write about it. So you can write about a cafe that you've been, how the experience was. So instead of spending time on illustration, you can spend time on the experience. That's one reason. And of course, then there are, this is just a style which, if you feel in one journal you only want to make graphic stuff, that itself looks very interesting, where you focus more on the lettering perhaps, or adding embellishments like patterns in the background or something like that, which are still again graphic elements. So the difference between the two, I would say, is one, when you look at all the different elements that we can illustrate, you will come across things that have a lot more detail, which can be detailed with color and shade and light and dark. And then you have stuff that can be detailed with lines, and you can just differ the two. When you are making a landscape with lots of shading and trees and whatever, even if it's got buildings, which can be made with line art, those lines are not like firm lines. The moment you make very firm lines around them and make like trees which have a cloud-like background, then it starts moving into a more graphic representation. Yeah, am I making
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so Dai is also here. So, for the Jodhpur illustrations, I looked and looked for pretty looking corridors in the blue buildings part. And there aren't too many pictures available, but I found some which I've shared, which have just doorways or little windows. And I think this is a very nice subject to start with. When you are starting making buildings, it can be a little daunting because buildings have so many different things and you don't know where to begin. You don't know how much detail to put in. And also, proportions make a difference. So, again, today, what we'll do is make these doors, but I will again make them more in a graphic style, which you can illustrate, sorry, fill up with color also. So, we will put the two together. There are a lot of illustrators now in the past 20 years or so who have made graphic illustration styles also a proper illustration style, so that you can make even large
Mm.
paintings in that style with very firm lines, and they look very compelling. At the end of the day, you want your artwork to look stunning. You want to be able to stand in front of it for a longer time and appreciate all its different characteristics. So we will use this to make something like a postcard. And postcards are obviously something that you can buy everywhere, but you can also make postcard size illustrations, which either you can send or you can keep again as a format for your travel journal. Instead of carrying a book, you can just carry sheets of paper, and each illustration can be a little postcard in the back of which you can write the experience. You can put a little medallion design for the day that you're traveling. That itself is a very nice thing. And then you put all the postcards in a box so that each of your trips becomes like a set of postcards that you have traveled through. Okay, so let me share the pictures and then I can talk about it a little bit. So often you will come across pictures like these, or you yourself will make pictures, click pictures like these, where you can frame an entire feature of a building within your photograph. Here, obviously, the photographer has clicked the picture from an angle, I suppose, in order to just give us a very nice centralized alignment of all the various arches in the building. But you know that this is not shot head on because you have a little perspective happening here. Now we are going to flatten this perspective and just make this door as if we are seeing it from the front. Like this. Here you see all the vertical and horizontal lines are absolutely perpendicular to the edges of the frame. And I like that there is somebody sitting inside, because then this gives a nice, literally a frame for somebody's life lived. Then we have something like this, which now I'm not entirely sure whether this is from Jodhpur because the door is blue, the lady inside is wearing something that looks pretty much Rajasthani, so I'm just winging it. But I this is from the pictures that I have found because the door was interesting. So let's make the first arch. We have these little bits of motorcycle, and I think there's a Luna also. We can try making those in the frame. That also looks very cute. But we will begin from the center. We will make the door this the wooden door, but we will make it closed. We are not drawing the arches inside because for this purpose, for our illustration, the arches are not going to be contributing to the overall effect that we want to achieve. But the door certainly is. There are so many beautiful things on the door that it might look better that way. These kinds of decisions you are fully allowed to take as artists. You don't, as artists, we don't have to rely on only what is seen. That is what photographers do. Their job is to photograph the best possible version of the environment that they come into. Ideally, they will not even touch a leaf if they can help themselves. But as artists, we don't follow any such thing. We can erase power lines, we can shut doors which are open, we can open doors which are shut. That is our creative superpower. All right, now to come to a format of a postcard, we can just create an A5 division on the page, not by folding, but by just pinching the paper on top. I've folded it up to the perforation mark, and this gives me a rough idea of how much space I have. This way you can eventually the fold or that pinch mark is going to get pressed down and become flat, but for now we know how much space we have. So let's try and guess the proportion of the doorway. And for this again, I will rely on drawing a square from the top. Lovely. So the square comes right down to this bottom part of the pillar. I think I should make it a little fatter. Now let's divide it in half. I'm using the measure only from the left side. And now let's see how far the bottom goes. Is it a 1.5 by 1:1.5 ratio? Okay, so it's a little less than that. 1.25 maybe. Divide this even further in half. So I'm only looking at the left side. Don't look at the right, because of the perspective lines, everything is different on the right hand side. But the left side gives you a starting point, and obviously everything on the right is going to be right next to it. Okay, then we have a center line. Maybe somewhere here. This is the visual center. And then we'll just go by this. Our picture again is not going to be 100% accurate, but it will be a quick graphic. We should be able to do this fast enough. Hi Divya.
Hi, ma'am.
You are going to be sketching with us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let me just tell you what we've done so far. I have
Yes.
divided the space and given some proportions, and we're using the measurements of just visual measurements. I don't have it in centimeters, inches, or anything like that. So you don't need a scale. Just use your pencil to mark maybe a guide grid on which then we are going to draw with a dark pencil itself. Okay, try to not use an eraser too much, and if you feel that your lines are not correct, then draw the correct line first and then use the eraser for the wrong line so that you don't get confused.
Okay.
And our lines are not going to be too accurate, so if it's just like a few millimeters to one side and you want to change it, don't even bother, I would say. All right?
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Okay. Okay, so to go over again, we are going to make this look like a postcard. So, Divya, we have just folded our paper over and just pinched on either end so that we get an idea of how much an A5 size page would be. But we are not creating a crease in the middle.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have this A3 paper size book.
Oh, A3 is too large. A3, then I would recommend cut it in half, or if it's just a loose paper, then in fact cut it into 4 parts.
It's not a loose paper, actually, it's a sketchbook.
So
So,
then, so then just do one thing. Just turn your book sideways. So assuming this is an A3 size,
okay.
fold it in half, then that becomes your A4 size.
Okay.
Okay, and we are going to make it only in half of that size.
Got it.
Okay, now the initial proportions are good because to mark out because they help us decide on how much space we need to give to our illustration. I'll just add that picture.
Just give me just one moment.
Yeah, yeah. So I've shared the image on the group, and we are looking at a proportion of 1 unit is to 1.25 or even 1.5 is fine, which we will then cut into half. So the first thing to do is just make a square. And using a pencil or a brush, uh, see that you have equal space from both sides. Okay, extend one line lower, cut the top square in half, but only on the left side. You don't have to draw this whole line, it's only on the left side. And you can cut this further into a quarter size and mark both these points further on the line. So what you'll effectively get is a square and half of that square extending further down, where you can now draw a baseline. So this is just the doorway, and there are two pillars on the side, which also if you want to add, then you have to accommodate some extra space at the bottom on the sides. A usual postcard is about 4-inch by 6-inch size. So when you make an illustration in this, you will be able to then either scan it and reprint it in a 4 by 6 size. Now let's draw a line running through the center. And at this point, which is 1/4 the distance of the square down, I'll draw another line. This is going to be the base of the door. So there is a step over here that runs from edge to edge. Then we'll draw a line, a dashed line at halfway up the first square or halfway down the first square. And very close to the edge, we will draw the edge or the border of the door. Now we are going to draw the central arch from a little below that halfway point. So I'm just going to put numbers here. We have 0 on top, then number 1, this is halfway down the square. 2, which is the full length of the initial square. 3, which is quarter of the distance below the square. And 4, which is all the way down. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So just below line 1, a little bit, I'm going to make a short line come out and make like a zigzag shape up and left. And a little below the top of our line 0, I'm going to mark a central point, which is where the arch is going to go. Now this arch is not just one curve. It goes straight, it goes almost straight up a little bit. and then it turns inward. These little details are very easy to get, so do spend a little time in making these shapes accurately. Have I shown you how to do this pencil yoga? Nahi, na? Okay, so just in the last 10 minutes of class, I'm going to give you some exercises. Because every time we draw lines like that, which are curved or that's a particular shape in a direction that we are not familiar with, I usually have a problem, and then suddenly I realize that you might also have a problem. And the best way to get rid of those problems is this whole exercise of pencil yoga, which I should have told you right in the beginning, but now the class is a good size, so I can give you that exercise. Zai, you must have done that in the past, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so this is our doorway, and at this point over here, we will extend a line outward to create the pillars because we need a little bit of a frame for the doors. And we are not going to make our lines look too straight. That seems a little strange for us in the beginning, but there is a certain charm to imperfect lines as well. So I've made two pillar-like shapes on the right of the top of the arch, right and left on the sides. Then just below line number 2, I am making a base for these pillars which extends below line number 3. And it's slightly wider at the top. Extend the top of that decoration also just a little bit. So I have two tiny rectangles over here on the sides at line number 1, and then the pillar continues. So the pillar is narrow, and then we have these little outcrops to distinguish the different parts of the pillar. Okay, now let's do a double line on the inside of our doorway. So this double line is going to mimic a thickness. And create a separation between the wall and the actual doors. Okay, this is that double line. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right, now let's start the doorway.
Aditi, can I get a minute?
Yes, please. Another 10 minutes and the sun will go up, so you won't get to see this whole shadow.
Ma'am, may I know what is this Nedible eraser all about?
Kneadable. Yeah, I'll show
Yes.
you. Yeah. So this eraser is, it comes in a square, So it's like a silly putty. You can break it up and you can mold it and shape it. So you will get it in like a tight square, and then you have to just keep breaking it into smaller and smaller pieces and make it like atta.
Okay.
Okay, and then the trick is that you can mold it to whatever shape you want.
And then erase.
Yeah, and then say I just want to erase over here, I can do that. So it takes in all the graphite, which means that it does not leave any dust. Normal erasers will start breaking up as they're erasing, and then you have to do all that push push. And then sometimes your hand goes over your work, so then the pencil spreads or the paint spreads, and it's just a mess. But this one is nice because you can just do this and it'll pick up all the graphite. And the next thing is also you can roll it, and if you want to lighten the lines, which you can when we are painting, you can just roll it and it'll keep picking up the graphite and make your lines light
Okay.
without damaging the surface of the paper. So when you're doing watercolor, you don't want the paper surface to have had too many abrasions on them.
Got
Okay,
it.
so this
Yes,
is,
ma'am.
it's called kneadable because you can knead it like dough. All right. Okay, shall we start the dough? All right. So now the doorway is quite elaborate and it's just a crisscross of multiple lines. So we make a line in the center going from the top to the bottom, and we have to divide each of these into at least three parts, not at least, exactly three parts. But all of those parts will have double lines. So it's easy to divide any section into up to three parts equally because that we can do visually. And you can just look at these and see whether or not you're getting equal shapes. Because my shape over here is weird, but I'm just going to let it be. And then we are going to make horizontal lines on this as well, which will be about the same width. So we're creating tiny squares, so we don't have to count how many we need. This is the width we have of the distance, and in order to make squares, we have to make lines exactly the same distance apart upright. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever we get, they all have to look square. 7 and 8. And there we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9. Now, if you take a closer look at the door, you will all curse me for why I have given you this design and why we are going to do this door instead of just making it hollow, because it is so complex. So, we're going to simplify it. First, we are going to make double lines on these sides. So, we need two lines on either side of the center of the door. So one line on the left and one line on the right. This is the door frame. So here the design doubles. In all the other places, you will make a line or maybe two lines in such a way that we get the same thickness throughout, as in thickness here, here, and here. Half of this is the same, and then a little bit on the left. So you will have to manipulate the lines a little bit. So very often you will see that in places like Rajasthan, oh sorry, before I start yapping, We start from the bottom, so again thickness at the bottom, and then maybe on either side of these lines that we have drawn horizontally. Make sure that we get a nice square in the center of each of these crisscross lines. Some places you might have to make a line only on one side, some places on both sides. Now, personally, I hate it when people just draw these crossing each other in pen. It just looks horrible and looks like a lazy design. But we are going to do something more intricate in this. Look at all the junctions, and in all of them, you will have a circle. So, we will make that circle. In the center, there are two circles touching each other. And on the sides, you might have just half a circle, because I'm assuming that this circle completes behind the wall. So, what I was about to say is that very often in places of historic importance like Jaipur, Jodhpur, and everywhere else, at least in India, or maybe even the world, there are certain artifacts of old architecture which have been preserved very beautifully, which in many cases have a lot of embellishment like this. And I feel it's totally worth spending some time in documenting these details to make your pictures look beautiful rather than the whole building, which most or many artists do, because that is, one assumes that that is what the requirement might be. But let me show you something that we've done in the Jaipur travel journal. So while we made a loose illustration of Hawa Mahal, a couple of loose illustrations. So we did this one, which is quite intense. Then this one, this is a postcard made by another student, Varsha. But this part was just drawing a silhouette of the building. But what I chose to spend more time on much later was in painting one of the doorways. Because the design is so intricate, it makes for such a lovely illustration. Why waste the opportunity? So it seems like a lot because of the tedious task that I took on, but the design itself broken down is quite simple. Similarly over here, it's not going to be that bad, don't worry. Here also, each of these has the same thing repeated, and in the repeats, we will see its beauty. So each of those circles has got a little, what is this? I would say maybe a curve on the side like that. So like a floret that reinforces the door. And then there's a circle inside it. And then once you've drawn these florets, you realize that those straight lines that you drew in between, they become much easier to draw. So now we have put down all the basic elements, and instead of making all these little things by pencil, now you can start inking it directly. So use a 0.2, a 02 or a 03 number pen, and if not, then just use a very dark line of your pencil. Does everyone have a pen, or should we just use a pencil? Yeah. Any pen. Divya, what pen do you have? Do you have a micron pen like this?
I have, ma'am, drawing system 0.2 pigment ink.
Correct. Yeah, we can use that. Correct. Zaid, are you carrying this?
I'm
Yeah,
still on the circle.
I am.
Okay. Sorry, Divya?
I have not done the circles.
The circles, you don't have to do all of them. I just want you to, if you can do them in pen, then you'll save yourself time.
Okay.
So now this is fairly simple. You know these circles. Before we make the circles though, we will make the arch so that we don't cross our borders. Start with the outer line. And I'll again reiterate, our lines do not have to be perfect or perfectly straight, but they have to be strong. So avoid making lines which are like this. Don't make lines which are like that. Okay, that is a weak line. But instead of making an arch like this, if your arch becomes like that, that is still a better line than this kind of a hairy line. Okay, just enjoy making the line. Have the confidence of a politician who is promising he's going to make your life amazing if he is elected. That is the confidence your line should have. Like everything you think is going to be possible as long as you elect them. So for the bottom, we will make a line which is going to be below the door. Now what have I done? I've done something. And then we'll draw that double line inside. And now you have to start making those circles. You can start making them right from the center. Actually, we can draw the center line of the doors, because that line has to come straight. And if you feel like it, and if you can, draw two lines very close to each other. Or if those two lines become one thick line, or slightly thick in some places, then there's some gap in some places, that is even more authentic. Now we're getting some solidity to the space. Then you can start making the circles. Now whenever you have a complicated design like that, my strategy is to make all the parts of that complicated pattern in pieces. So first we will make only the circles, just the central circle, nothing else. There are a couple of reasons for why I'll do it like this. One is, when you are making one shape, like a circle in this case, you want to make uniform circles throughout. It's easier to repeat just one movement of your hand over and over again, rather than break that movement into parts by finishing a pattern and then going to the next pattern. So those of you who've studied economics might probably remember this from assembly line production system, that when you break up a task and divide it and give it to different people, their work efficiency is much higher. It's much easier to do one task consistently than breaking it up. And much later, of course, people have written papers on how deeply unsatisfying that job will be. But for us, we are going to do the whole thing start to finish, so it won't matter. You won't mind. So that is the consistency of shape part. The second reason is that at some point you might feel that making the design too complex might not work for the illustration. So you want to fill up just the circles and then take a call. Do you want to make those petals or not? And there have been times in the past where I've made a design and I have just stopped and said, okay, this is enough. Initially, I had thought I would like to fill it up a little more, but maybe not. So if we were to draw the horizontal and vertical lines on even this, and then we have even more circles in the center, it might even suffice. You don't need to do more. Shall we try that? I think we can try that. Let's just do it that way. So now we can make lines. So I'm not making the flower petals around it. Just make your horizontal and vertical lines running into these circles like that. Not around them. So there'll be a narrower line. And with each line again, I prefer to make the pair together, but if you want to just make one line throughout so that you can make sure it continues, that is fine too. And since these lines are going into the circle and not around, we don't have to worry about what happens horizontally. Those lines can also just continue. So those of you who did the doodle of the day last month, you will find this exercise similarly satisfying. So those of you who have not used micron tips before, one tip I can give you is to hold the pen a little upright when you're drawing instead of your normal drawing hold, and draw the lines much slower than pencil lines, because these pens have a certain felt like tip from where the ink is released very slowly, and it takes a little time for the ink to settle on the rough paper that we'll end up using. So if you want a nice line, just touch the pen to the paper and linger for just a little while for the ink to make proper contact with the paper, and then move it slowly so that that flow is not disrupted. There, already it's looking nice. Okay, does everyone need a minute? Okay, take it on. Okay, shall we move on? Now for the next part, we will draw the two pillars on the side. And we start off with these little extra outcrops on both sides. So here we have a few designs which we are going to simplify. You will have a rectangle, draw both rectangles, as in the rectangles on both sides at the same time. And below that, you will draw another full rectangle. Don't just attach that to the top. Draw a double line at the bottom and a full rectangle. And in that, starting from the center, you can draw these inverted leaf-like shapes and draw 3 in the center and then half and half on the side. Manipulate the size such that that fits. Then we will draw the bottom part. So here again we will draw a rectangle on top, and there seems to be a very beautiful intricate design at the bottom. So draw just the bottom part in again a very small rectangle shape, and we will give it a silhouette like this. So it's got a silhouette of a compound curve, like a extended pot. And there are some designs in this which we will reserve for later. We'll just keep it like this for now. So these were often wooden sections of the doorway. So they would be very intricately carved. In the bottom again, you will notice that there is some very intricate design. So we will draw the, I guess, the plinth. Just trying to figure out where exactly it comes. Yeah, we can make it somewhere here. So start the top of that rectangle at the base of the door. And just a rounded edged rectangle would do. Just ensure that all this is one on top of the other, not separate. And then we can make guess a design that looks like, so it's got these scallop like designs. I don't know how to make it right now, so I'm just going to leave it. Let's first make the boxes on top. So finish this pillar shape from the side, in the middle, and running on top. Now here, I just want to show you a trick. If I try to make this line with my hand on the table, I'm sure this is going to be a little crooked. So that's because I have this whole thickness of the book on the right. So I will bring in another surface that is the same height, which allows me to draw the same kind of line over here as well. And this can be different things. You can get another book, or you can get any object that allows you to keep your hand at the same height to draw the line as you have drawn the first few lines. This is a trick we do in calligraphy when we come towards the end of the page. Okay, let's finish this on top. And now we can make the inside parts. So we are going to make the inside part like this. Now I've switched to see the reference image from the original photograph. Make a frame around the inside, taking this line down to the edge of the pillar. That is why we made the pillar first. Just this part, there's a double line you see that comes down to this part. Don't join it there yet. Within this frame, we have to make the design of the doorway. So that design is quite interesting. We have, look at this part where we've come to the center of the arch. Do you all have a line running through this part? I know we drew the horizontal lines quite arbitrarily, but this seems to be like the center of the arches. Okay, the reason I'm saying that is because even if you don't have a line running through, you will see that the arch points towards some point on the center, which looks like a perpendicular line that goes through the corner. See how these lines, line maker also crooked. Okay, now this is going to be the point where we will make the central curved scallop of the design, and also then make two on either side about the same size. So we get the main part of the design done, and then you will connect this to the top with half a curve. So make sure that this half and this half is the same. And then for the other sides, you just have to bring it down and complete our edge at the bottom. Once you have this line, you can make the design much easier. You can turn your book around if you need to. And we've completed this part. Let's give this a nice double line from the inside. Now the very complicated design we have over here in each of the corners, we can build that first by making this has become a little shorter if you notice. Never mind. So we'll make a little circle here on both corners, and then we will draw just one compound curve. Now there's a very complex design there. We are distilling that to make just one compound curve there. And from the bottom, I think this is supposed to look like flowers on the corners. Very lovely graphic. You will draw almost like a leaf pattern over there. But look at how the leaf is. It's a triangle and then a curve. Not a triangle actually. What is this called? So your leaf can be like a folded leaf. It goes up and down like that and then like this. So it doesn't look like a leaf like that. That is just too not going to look good. And then make a few of these shapes of the flower. So they are just curved petals. And for all you know, this could be a representation of sunflowers, because I have seen the sun represented like that in designs in Rajasthan. Make a circle in the center, in the center of that. Okay, let's now recreate this. And don't make it too precise. I think, yeah, I've made this design in the opposite direction. I'm going to turn this around now. It should be, both these flowers are turning in the opposite direction to each other. I mean, that's the least we can do. Okay. We can make this design like this. And for this leaf, maybe you can also make a compound curve like that. Just looks nicer. So outward, in, and then turn. And wherever you have a little blank space, if you feel like it, you can put some more of the same shape like this. Just a little bit of a crescent shape in different directions to act as a filler. Okay, now we come to the squares on the side. These rectangles we have to cut into 3.5 parts. So 1, 2, 3, and a tiny little extra over here. 1, 2, 3, and a little extra there. And essentially we have to draw concentric squares inside of this. So we will have one square like that, and maybe one more or two more inside this. So the second one inside is optional. If it's too tiny, just the two, the big one and the small one, are good enough. And just below that, that empty space that we see is like a cubby hole, which has a little bit of different embellishment. Now, even in the bottom, we have to cut this into similar parts. So, I think I won't be able to make 3 of the same size. So, I'm going to go ahead and just make 2. Should I make 2? Oh no, they are also not equal size. Alright, so I'll make 3. 2, and 3. Same pattern. Square or rectangle, sorry. Rectangle, and then 2 rectangles inside that. Now this bottom part, wait, I'll wait for everyone. Do you finish these squares? So in this bottom part, we have something that looks like this. It's a beautiful leaf which is I think also turned in the center. So I'm making this leaf shape here. But the outside part is just a silhouette running around that shape. And here we can draw two shapes like that. So we have two curves at the bottom from which some lines are going to go to the top. Just bring those curves from the side to the center. Then you have some kind of triangular shape in the middle of those. And several lines that go from the side like this. Radiating outward towards the edge. And then we have something like just a triangle at the top to finish that embellishment, and maybe just a swirl on the right, a little spiral going to the right and the left, and the same spiral is on the top part like this. That's it. I don't think we want to do anything more there. Now, since the pillars have come lower, we don't want this to look imbalanced. We will draw a step. So when you want to draw a doorway that is a little recessed from the step, keep it some distance higher so that this step is actually on the same level as the door, but it looks like it's in the front, and the door is a little recessed behind these pillars. Okay, and just for completion, I would extend my central frame a little higher, and then the pillars a little higher because it's come too close to the edge. There is a little more height to this section than I have made. That's okay. So this becomes our doorway. Oh, there are few more things. Oh, right in the centers we have to make some more. So I was wondering why this door is not looking how it should. Indoors in forts, you have these metallic pieces also spiked. So you would have some metal spike coming out of it, and I feel this was to discourage invaders from ramming into the door with animals. I just hate the thought of that, but those spikes are absolutely deadly. I'm sure you must have come across them in various forts. Now it's looking proper ornate. Okay, now once you're done with the drawing, you can erase all our guidelines. And in that also, erase the lines that are getting in the way of the illustration. If there are some lines that you've made that even you don't see, then you don't have to erase it. I keep thinking that my door is slightly sideways. I think it's tilted upwards like that. We are going to write the name of the city also. Maybe the blue city or Jodhpur blue or something like that. We'll think about that. So we'll consume the space on top and the bottom. And this part now we can paint. Since we have spent so much time in illustrating, the painting is going to be rather simple, but we will have to think about how to write the name of the city. So what I'm proposing is, because this doorway is part of a large building which is also painted blue, we will paint all of this section and bleed some of the blue around without drawing any specifics over there. So the blue is not going to be restricted to only the frame, it will bleed all over. And the doorway we will make with a combination of yellow ochre and burnt sienna. More yellow ochre, but making it slightly reddish. And that color will bleed down into the ground because that color is very much like the earth of the place. So that way we will show that we have literally just taken the wash of the colors from the land and converted that into a structure. So in a way, our illustrations can also tell a story. There should be some kind of meaning we put in the illustrations. So let's start off with making the blue. And this blue can be just a plain cerulean blue, because cerulean is such a vibrant color, there's no way you can ignore it. So this one is cerulean blue. If you don't have cerulean blue, you can use any bright blue you have. We will be making some shadows using cobalt blue or ultramarine blue. So don't use those colors. Just any bright blue shade is fine. Now when we are making a wash, we want to make a paint that is running very easily. Okay, another tip for those of you who are right-handed, please keep your colors, water and rag on your right-hand side, not on your left-hand side, so that you don't go over the painting ever. Just move everything to your right. Mix pigment to water in about 50-50 proportion. So take some pigment, take about the same amount of water. This is just an approximation. No? I don't think anyone can ever tell whether it's exactly 50-50. But you don't want too much water and you don't want the paint to be too thick either. So check in your palette if your paint is flowing beautifully. If it flows well on the palette, then it will flow well on paper as well. So let's turn our book around and paint from just above the plinth of the pillars. Remember this whole design that we had done over here? We are going to not paint there. We are going to paint everything around it, which includes the frame of the door as well. So run the color around. Later on, some of these colors are going to merge. So let them merge also. Now I'm not going to spread my color all over willy-nilly. So I like to put some structure and thought into that as well. So towards the top, I'm going to extend the color outward and just press my brush in a few places so that I don't get a flat edge. That flat edge can look rather boring and too predictable. So press your brush down in a few places, pick it up in a few places, and then turn your book around, hold it at an angle so that you can use gravity to pull the color down. And remember to stop at the plinth of the pillar. If you don't stop and you still go ahead, it's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. Once you have painted this, don't fiddle with it. Let this dry. Take a call. See how it's looking. If you don't like it, if you want to change it, we can go over it a second time, but after the paint dries. Now let's mix the second color. The second color is yellow ochre with just a little bit of burnt sienna, which is right next to it. So we're taking that dull yellow ochre color and making it a little more vibrant with burnt sienna. So these colors are not necessarily going to match, but I want to keep them exciting. Now let's just paint over the entire door. In the process of painting this, if your color changes because you've not made enough paint, so you have to make, I'm just going to demonstrate that as well. If it does change, if your shade changes a little bit, don't be tempted to go back and paint the earlier part. Just let the new color flow. All these colors lighten up considerably, so you won't see a very significant difference. But if you go back into that color and try to correct it or equalize it, that will leave patches which are infinitely worse than just a color variation. Okay, and now we can bleed this color out into the ground as well. So just a little bit is fine. Don't make it too, don't make it come out too much. That gives us enough room to write Jodhpur also. We can always write on top of the color also. I have also managed to keep a few white patches, not intended, but I'm not going to go and fix them. It's fine. Just so you know, it's 5 minutes to end of class. I might take another 10 minutes, but if you need to leave, you can just exit the class, not a problem. I'm going to fill in some shadows and then I'm going to write Jodhpur. So for the shadows, in one corner of my cerulean blue, I am adding ultramarine blue, and only in one corner because I don't want to change the color of the entire puddle. And using a fine brush, I'm going to make a few lines next to some of the patterns that we have made, just on one side maybe. Then on the top here, you will see these shadows in the reference image. And you don't need to make shadows only in black. Then on the underside of the curve on the right hand side, on this side, and then again just close to any one side, usually on the underside of all your designs, under the circle, under these spiral petals, because most light sources, and in this case because it's a door, the light source is probably going to be the sun, the shadow is going to fall on the lower part of the design. So even in a graphic like this, you will see really sharp shadows. Now you can use the same cobalt blue, cerulean blue mix to make a shadow even in the door. And because of its base color, that shadow will change to whatever shadow is most appropriate for that color. So you don't have to change the shadow color at all. Everywhere it can be exactly the same. This part we will make on both sides of the arch of the doorway because it's in a recess inside the doorway. The same thing can be done on that plinth. And also underneath the step. And we can do one fun thing is on the left hand side of the door, we can make this triangular shadow. Now if you feel very zealous about this, you can make shadows here as well, so that the door also looks like it is three-dimensional. See, underneath the circles and on the right and bottom of the square, or the top line, sorry. In each of these internal squares on the left hand side and the top. Left of each square and top and bottoms of the circles. So I'm not going to do this whole thing because I just want to save on time. Once I've shown you this, if you feel like it, you can make it. And basically make these kinds of shadows wherever you see them. The more shadows you make, the more realistic like it would look despite it being a graphic. See, it gets that element of 3D. Now quickly, let's write Jodhpur at least. So for that, make 2 lines. Now whenever you are making text, try to see that the text made for a particular illustration is closer to the illustration than to the edge of the paper or to any other element. So in this case, I'm deliberately writing Jodhpur on top of part of this sandy color. And I'm going to fit it within the edges of our pillars. So how do we do this? We want to center align the letters and we want to keep it within a certain limit. When we are writing letters, we start writing from the left. So you'll assume that, okay, G, J, O, D, H, P, U, R. And often you'll be either left with too little or too much space on the right. But in order to counter that, this is what you should do, planning. So Jodhpur has how many letters? 7, which is great because then we get a letter in the center, which is H. We know where the center of our drawing is. So the H has to stand over here, which means that we need 3 anchor points on either side to write the rest of the letters. Now, how do we do this? I just want everyone to observe this because this is something that you should see. Just listening to it might not be enough. If you're looking down and working, then you might miss this. So visually, I want to divide the left and the right into 3.5 squares or 3.5 units. So I'll make one unit here arbitrarily and see what distance I have, and then start dividing that. Literally visually, which means that if I were to make my lines like this gives me enough space. And if now we had letters like I or J, J is coming in the center, I or W and M, they require different spaces. So here Jodhpur has letters which will all fit within the same size of square or rectangle. So this is how my Jodhpur is going to fit. I'm going to put some space in between the letters also. And then fit my letters like this, J, O. Once I know where they're sitting, then I can write from the left. And let them nicely fit that whole rectangle space that you have earmarked for them. Okay, now if this is too big, you can do the same thing in a smaller space. Once you've written it in pencil, take a look at it properly and see whether it is suiting your taste. And I usually write my letters in scarlet. So I'm mixing a little bit of maybe orange and scarlet, that looks good. Or orange and crimson makes for a very nice mix also. Maybe I'll try that today because I'm running out of scarlet. Yeah, this is a beautiful Rani pink color. And it's quite suitable for Jodhpur also, using a pink shade because they do a lot of textile printing in this pink color. So those of you who would like to become or improve your lettering, I would recommend doing some exercises just in lettering itself. So whenever you get a chance, just try painting letters instead of writing them. So use a brush and try to directly paint them. You can use blank paper or even ruled paper is fine if you feel that you're not confident about the baseline. But it helps immensely to become comfortable with a brush and make letters with that. Just normal, regular letters, not brush painted letters. And some rules about lettering are that all the line thicknesses should match, spacing between the letters should match. The they should basically look like they're from the same family. Okay, now while this is drying, I want to quickly explain to you what pencil yoga is. If you can just give me a minute, I just have to explain that to you, then you can do it later. So you can use something like old newspaper or any old paper you have, and basically practice making lines. So the rule is that you keep that paper in front of you. If you're using newspaper, keep a stack of newspapers. If you're using just old papers, recycling them, then again keep them on a stack. Don't keep them directly on a table, because the hardness of the table gives you terrible line quality. So you need to keep that paper in front of you and not move the paper. If you're making it in a book, don't move the book. You don't move either. Only your hand moves. And you have to make different lines in it. So you have to make horizontal lines from left to right, and you make them from top to bottom. Now it's going to be a little uncomfortable if you're not allowed to move the book. But the whole reason you don't change the angle of the book is because you have to then manipulate your wrist and your fingers. If you are allowed to change the book, you effectively are drawing only one kind of line, which is the most comfortable line, which does not give you any flexibility in the wrist and fingers. When you keep this here, you're forced to take your hand in another angle, then you lift your elbow, and you'll do all sorts of stuff like that. So in this, there are 4 movements that your hand will go through, and this allows your hand more flexibility. You need to get your wrist and your fingers to move very flexibly, and also your arm to be comfortable when held mid-air, holding a pencil, trying to draw a line. These are the muscles that are not developed at all, and we have to work on them, literally like going to a gym. So the lines that you draw are in 8 cardinal directions: horizontal from left to right, and horizontal from right to left as well. You will do one direction at one time. So make all the left to right, and then make all the right to left. Once you're finished with the horizontal, you do the same thing for vertical, top to bottom. Finish all that, and then you do bottom to top. Then diagonals, the same thing, one way and the other, and diagonal from the other side and the other. So you should see 8 lines lines in 4 directions, and you will know that they've gone in both directions. Then you will draw circles, large circles which are about this size, about 3 or 4 inches, and then smaller circles, and then smaller circles. So the large circles, your entire arm will move. The medium circles, maybe just the wrist will move, and the tiny circles, you will plant your wrist and then make only with your fingers. Okay, after this is done, then you will make spirals, and both these can be done clockwise and anti-clockwise. So this is no more than a 10-minute exercise. And you don't have to look at the quality of the lines. The lines do not have to be straight. That is why I ask you to do this on a newspaper, where the letters are, or the printing is going to completely obscure the line. Then you're not worried about how your lines are looking. It's more for your hand to do. Now, if I just ask you to take some stick in your hand and do this, unless that line is made on paper, it might not make any effect on your hand at all. So it doesn't help to just make this in the air. You have to touch that line to paper. Okay? So try doing this for a week. And if you still want to do something more beyond those 10 minutes of the pencil yoga, you can go to the Instagram page where that whole doodle of the day is given from March 1st to 31st. So you can try and make those patterns, and that these are just an idea of patterns that you can make. Take those and make some other regular patterns also, and see if it in the next month or so your hand starts moving a lot more predictably. All right. Okay, so that's that. We finished on time. I will share an image of my Jodhpur. I'll erase some of the lines and everything so it will look better. And next week we will take on the uh, previous parts, unfinished illustrations, and complete those. So Zai and Divya, I don't think you were in those classes. I'll share those two videos with you. Zai, I think you've already finished one. And Divya, I'll share those videos with you again. So you can make those as well, and then we will complete that. So that's the page that we did last week. I will show you how to make the edges. And the week before that, we made the building. So we need to complete that as well. Otherwise, it looks a little raw. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And just so you know, the week after that, so next week the class will be on the 25th. And the week after that, I think it's the 1st or the 2nd of May. That week will be a holiday because I'm taking that 1 week off. So that class would have been, if I'd have included that class in May, we would have had 5 classes. But I'm burning out, so I need a break for a week. Which doesn't mean that I'm not going to do art. I just don't want to do any videos. That's it. So I will do some other art. Okay, so that will be the first week of May. The first class of May we won't have. So in case you want to travel or something, you can plan that way. Okay, that's it then. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Questions?
Thanks, Aditi. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Aditi.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
if you can
you.
share the
Bye.
video. I didn't do the last part of it, so if you can share the video,
I'll do that. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll share the video. No time. Yeah.
Oh.
Bye, ma'am.